I'm wary, Ross, of getting too much into politics, though. Do you feel like there's an incredible appetite out there after the debate and everything else, or did we reach our high watermark of interest?
I think there's still interest because this race is so unique given how Biden dropped out for Harris. I think if this were Biden versus Trump, people would be completely burned out and be culturally exhausted. And I think already
Mm,
Americans are less keyed in, as you've talked about, less keyed into politics. I think that's very true. But I also think you don't have that same level of exhaustion and burnout because Harris, even though she's not fresh face, she's vice president, she's a fresh
yeah.
face as a nominee. And this race, Harris versus Trump, has only existed since the end of July. So it's a bit of a sprint. So I think that sort of mitigates some of the exhaustion that the people might have, certainly that they would have had with Trump versus Biden.
I think that is certainly true. And there was far more interest in this debate than the last disastrous debate that forced Biden out of the race. I also had that feeling where I started to watch, but then it's around kids' bath time. It's at a weird time for the West Coast. So I did what a lot of people do,
Yeah.
which is look at the reactions to the reactions. I kind of grokked that Trump had a bad night and that she was ahead of expectations, which seemed like that was pretty big for her. But at the same time, when I would jump in, instantly I would get super bored, just incredibly bored. And I would put myself in, I don't know, in some sort of high percentile of political interest. And then after a lot of the drama and the fireworks of the debate had happened and the takes have already congealed, it was remarkable that it was still going on. And an hour and a half later, it's like, whoa, this thing is still going. Who sits
Yeah.
down for this? And apparently the answer is tens of millions of Americans. I remember
Yeah.
Dawadoff, who wrote that fascinating book about the New York Jets, where he was embedded with the team. And he said, is there anything Americans care more about, know less about than professional football? And I just wonder if politics might be ahead of football because maybe I'm projecting my own sort of enervation with this. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are keyed in and very energized, galvanized by the whole thing.
Yeah. It's strange. Strangely enough, I was thinking about this is Trump's eighth general election presidential debate, which is sort of insane if you think about it. You had three in
Oh my God.
2016, three in 2020, two in this cycle. That this might have been the last one. So, some of the novelty definitely with Trump wears off. I think in a way that's one
Yeah.
of Trump's challenges now, even though I think with the Electoral College, he's got a decent shot to win. The When Trump burst on the scene, he was such a destabilizing presence and it was so new, putting aside, ideology for a second, the idea of someone talking this way on the debate stage was so new and just
Yep.
so unlike anything we'd seen before. It was sort of like a technicolor, going from black and white to technicolor, just in the way he was. It was deeply entertaining. It really is. And I think now the shtick is old. We've seen Trump. You turn it on. There's Trump rambling about eating pets was amusing, but then it just continues on and on. And Harris, I
You
think
can only
to
eat
her
so many
credit, is
pets.
only eat so many dogs and cats. Harris, to her credit, is a standard issue politician, so you're not going to get a great deal of entertainment value from her, certainly. But I think it was a successful debate on her end. One, because she didn't have any great flubs. I think the moderators were nice to her, though they weren't as terrible to Trump as the Republicans make it out to be, but they certainly didn't challenge her a great deal. But also, it was a low bar to clear, right? I mean, you go from Joe Biden, who literally could not cognitively function on a debate stage, to a very median Democrat or just the median politician who can say her talking points. She can rebut him. She can speak aggressively. She can make quips, right? So just you get all that together. And I think it was still a bit of a revelation coming out of Joe Biden to now, okay, this is what a 59-year-old former
Yeah.
senator from California sounds like.
They're not She's not possibly having a stroke that we're all witnessing together as a nation. I thought,
No.
look, who knows? There are okay. going to go a few directions. I always do this thing. I don't want to talk politics, and I talk politics. I can't help it. It's really interesting. One thing that struck me, I did see the moment where Trump said, I have concepts of a plan. I believe that was about removing Obamacare. Yes? That's what that was about. It was.
Yes.
I've had frustration expressed towards me when I talk about these elections in a horse race kind of way from subscribers. And I think they're really onto something with their frustration. It feels almost as though we're wholly divorced from issues and something else is happening, because he said that I have concepts of a plan. It was an embarrassing thing to say. It becomes a meme. Everybody's mocking him over it. And what struck me about that is that the issue is very important. And it's an issue that tends to be really bad for Republicans versus Democrats, because even if there might be a libertarian argument for how healthcare should just be a product like any other product and the free market should decide, that's a very unpopular position. And there hasn't seemingly been a sufficient Republican answer for what it should be, which is why I think he got caught up there and why it's concepts of a plan and why it was evasive in that moment. But I feel as though if such a thing had happened back in the day, in the recent past, that would have been the focus. It would have been, oh my God, on healthcare, they've got no plan. That's insufficient. What are they going to do? And instead it's, oh, look at this idiot. And that's really how it's progressed. Am I overanalyzing that, or am I onto something here?
No, I think that's right. I mean, this is an election. It's unlike any other because of the nature of how Harris became the nominee, and it's also, I mean, strikingly devoid of any real serious policy debates, policy proposals. Hillary Clinton did run policy heavy campaign. Joe Biden did not in 2020, and maybe obviously Trump never has either, other than speaking sort of in slogans and build the wall and stop, put tariffs on imports and things like that. But Trump has never ever been policy focused, nor does he know policy. I think that's very plain by now, that Donald Trump could not sit down and tell you anything about the Affordable Care Act, how healthcare exchanges work. Probably barely knows the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. And I think Kamala Harris, to her discredit, has run a very vibes-based campaign with almost no media interaction at all and no real policy proposals of any kind. She offered an economic plan of some sort that was quite vague, a housing plan of some sort that was quite vague. The election's coming in November, so if she wins, we're not going to really have a great idea of what she wants to do as president. We still don't. You talk to the average Democrat, they don't care. Of course, Republicans don't care either, so I don't mean to only the Democrats here. But it is an election is right now entirely devoid of that substance. And I think you've those two factors. One, Trump has never brought that substance, and Harris also either is strategically not interested, or she's actually not. If she's actually not interested, that's a little disturbing. It could be a posture because her advisors believe this is the best tactic to take against Donald Trump, and we will find out soon if that's the case.
Yeah, I think she's just not interested. I think she's similar to him in that respect. And for whatever reason, the system as it's set up has rewarded that lack of interest, and vibes.
Well, there's no primary. I mean, that's the thing to keep in mind. You remember the 2020 Democratic primary. I mean, throughout 2019, you actually had a rather robust policy debate. With the arrival of COVID and sort of the Trump shadow, it was all shunted to the side. But there was a time when Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Warren, and Biden were debating their healthcare plans. And this was a thing people thought about. But that's what primaries often are for. There was no primary. Harris did not win a single vote, which people, not you obviously, but people have kind of memory hold. She's here without a single vote. And I looked it up. The last time that happened, I believe, was the 1952 election where Adlai Stevenson was nominated against Eisenhower. There were no primaries then, and he's not win a single vote. But since then, someone's gotten some votes along those lines, and Harris, of course, won 0 because she's not competing in those primaries.
I think that's a great point, referencing the old Bernie primaries, because in the not so distant past, it was really, this was about something and what your vision for the future was. And Bernie's vision that excited a lot of young people, whatever its merits and whatever people think it would actually be if fully realized. And this isn't that. Right now, the election is going to have massive consequences, not necessarily in one's day-to-day life. I think your day-to-day life, whoever you are, for most people, will proceed as per usual unless we get into some nuclear conflict, knock on wood. But I think as it's presented to us, it's not even about that. It's, do you like the mean, rude man or the nervous, spacey woman? And it's just, it's not, it's so substanceless. And that's something I've been hearing from friends of mine, some of them lefties. And I think what J. Caspian King wrote about in the New Yorker resonated with people quietly. He was, of course, attacked by extremely online people for expressing frustration with the overt emptiness of the Kamala campaign, because he wants it to be about something. And I've just been hearing from people in private about how it just feels very cynical. And I think that you do run a risk of underestimating the public and underestimating, and I would throw that at both candidates, that look, you got here through vibes or whatever, but people are excited by a vision of how the country should be and how it might change their lives and how they might be able to attain more or live the kind of life that they want. And if your entire message is, I'm not the other person, or if that's a lot of the message, I think you do run the risk of exhausting people in a certain way. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm overestimating what people want out of all of this, but that's just something I've been hearing.
Yeah, and I think for now, Kamala can get away with it because the election timeline is so short. So you're running a substanceless campaign. You can sort of drown out the demands for substance, the demands for media interactions, the demands for policy platforms and vision, because the election is coming up in less than 2 months. I think if you had a conventional election cycle where she had won a primary nomination, she couldn't quite do this. I don't think it would be possible to get away with this for this long, but because she became the de facto nominee on July 21st when Biden dropped out and endorsed her, the convention happens in August. We've been on such it's such a sprint. Certainly not by the standards of world democracies where election seasons are short. By American standards, this is very short. So she is able to dodge some of this. I agree, it's risky. And it's risky, because she could lose. But if she wins, then you're president of the United States. You control the nuclear arsenal that can destroy the world 100 times over. What are you going to do? What are your plans for anything? For Ukraine, for Israel, for a genocide going on in Sudan, let alone what's going on in the United States, right? I mean, what are you going to do about all this stuff? And when you bring this up, and I'm seeing it, the term, obviously, blue MAGA. This is a term that kind of feel like came into vogue a few years ago. And it was one I was a bit skeptical of. It feels like the successor to the resistance lib. And, I see a little blue MAGA out there. I think,
it's just shut up. Just shut up. We're trying to win. You're going to make us not win. Right. Shut up. Shut your mouth.
Yes. Yes, the blue MAGA. I'm seeing it. It's interesting. I mean, I think the far right is very illiberal, extremely illiberal in the sense that they're not interested in free speech and free exchange of ideas, and they love conspiracy theories and making things up and lying and all that in Trump. That I think we acknowledge. But I'm seeing this liberalism on the left, and it's not. I don't want to make this like an anti-woke thing, because I'm not talking about the cancel culture. It's something different. It's what you're describing: the shut up, the stop asking questions, to how dare you demand a normal democratic process, small d democratic process. How dare you ask for these things? You want a press conference? You want Kamala Harris to take time out of her day to stand in front of journalists and answer
No,
questions? We're
it's too
running. We're
good
going to
for
try to
you.
stop fascism here. What are you thinking about? And that's where the blue MAGA thing. It's coming. I'm seeing it. It's something I think I would
There's a
have been a
lot.
little dismissive of, but I'm seeing it.